Whispers of the Forgotten World, A Journey Through Lost Civilizations Introduction, The Call of Ancient Times. In the boundless expanse of Earth's ancient past, our species is but a fleeting ripple in the vast ocean of time. The land beneath our feet, the mountains we gaze upon, and the rivers that shape the plains have existed long before the earliest human footsteps. Eons before our ancestors kindled their first fires, the Earth was a world of tumultuous forces, both gradual and violent. And one of the most significant of these forces was the cycles of ice, known as the Ice Ages, which shaped not only the land, but the destiny of all life upon it. Across Earth's 4.5 billion years, 5 monumental ice ages have swept across the planet, each bringing dramatic transformations. The Huronian Ice Age, more than 2 billion years ago, left its mark on an Earth still young and wild, freezing vast portions of the globe. Following it came the Cryogenian Ice Age, a time when glaciers may have stretched all the way to the equator, encapsulating the planet in a frigid shell. Later came the Andean-Saharan Ice Age, which occurred nearly 450 million years ago, its grip most evident in what are now deserts and mountains. The Karoo Ice Age, named after the fossil-rich Karoo Basin in South Africa, chilled the world some 300 million years ago, leading to evolutionary shifts that would eventually influence all future life. Lastly, we come to the Quaternary Ice Age, which began 2.58 million years ago and is still ongoing. This ice age, which most of us think of when we hear the term, is the one that gave birth to and shaped the very civilizations that are the subject of this narrative. The Quaternary Ice Age was not just an era of glaciation. It was an epoch of immense trial and transformation. Imagine a world where mammoth ice sheets towered over continents, their massive forms creeping across the land with an icy grip. The great glaciers extended from the polar realms, scarring the earth with their slow, relentless march, carving out valleys and mountains, pushing entire ecosystems to their brink. It was in this cold, forbidding landscape that early humans emerged, their lives interwoven with the frozen world around them. But even before the ice began to claim the land, picture a time when Earth was lush and bountiful. Before the onset of the last great freeze, continents were covered in forests so thick they seemed endless. Canopies of ancient trees stretched toward the heavens, casting deep shadows on the fertile ground below, where animals thrived and rivers flowed freely, unburdened by the coming ice. In this verdant world, early humans found sanctuary, gathering in small communities where they learned to live in harmony with the land. It was a time of abundance, when the earth provided all that was needed, and humanity's connection to nature was one of reverence and respect. The people of these ancient times were attuned to the rhythms of nature in ways we can scarcely comprehend today. They spoke in languages lost to the ages, their words carried on the wind, now only echoes among the ruins. They hunted the great beasts of their time, following herds across plains that would one day be buried beneath miles of ice. They gathered by the warmth of communal fires under star-streaked skies, their eyes reflecting the flickering flames as they told stories of the spirits that guided them through life and death. Their myths were etched into the walls of caves, each symbol a message to future generations, warning them of the cycles of time and the powers of the natural world. And then the earth began to change. Slowly at first, but with an inevitability that would alter the course of history. A chill crept into the air, the summers grew shorter and winters longer and more brutal. The skies, once clear and boundless, became heavy with clouds. Snow fell where it had never fallen before. Rivers once teeming with life froze solid, and forests withered under the growing cold. The great glaciers stirred, their slow but relentless advance claiming more land with each passing century. The world, once vibrant and green, became a harsh and unforgiving place, a world on the cusp of a profound transformation. For the early civilizations of this time, the ice was not just a physical barrier, it was a force that tested their very survival. As the glaciers expanded, people were forced to migrate, their homelands swallowed by the creeping ice. They journeyed across vast distances, seeking refuge in warmer lands, following the animals they had hunted for generations. In this migration, humanity was not just running from the cold, but learning, adapting, and evolving. They crafted new tools, learned to build shelters against the biting winds, and discovered ways to preserve food for the long, unrelenting winters. These were times of great ingenuity, as necessity spurred the invention of clothing, weapons, and even the rudiments of agriculture. The Earth had entered a new age, and so too had humanity. As the great ice sheets reached their peak, new landscapes emerged from the frozen world. Islands, once part of vast landmasses, were cut off as sea levels dropped, creating isolated sanctuaries where life evolved along its own unique paths. Great land bridges, like the one connecting Asia to North America, opened new frontiers for human exploration, allowing our ancestors to spread across the globe in search of better lands, following the pull of the horizon. These migrations would lay the foundation for civilizations on distant shores, giving rise to cultures that would shape the world for millennia to come. And yet, even as humanity flourished in the cracks and crevices of the frozen world, the ice itself began to recede. Slowly, over tens of thousands of years, the glaciers that had once dominated the landscape melted away, revealing a world forever altered by their passage. New rivers flowed in the valleys carved by the ice, and once hidden lands rose from beneath the sea as the waters withdrew. This rebirth of the earth was as dramatic as the ice that had once covered it, creating new opportunities for life and civilization. The lands that emerged from beneath the glaciers became the cradles of human innovation, giving rise to the great civilizations of Mesopotamia, the Nile Valley, the Indus River, and beyond. As we embark on this journey through the ice ages and the civilizations they shaped, we are not merely recounting history. We are walking alongside the ancients, listening to their voices carried on the wind, witnessing the world through their eyes. In their stories of survival, ingenuity, and perseverance, we find reflections of our own modern struggles, climate change, migration, and the eternal quest for meaning. The echoes of their forgotten voices guide us, whispering tales of kings who ruled with wisdom, of priests who communed with the divine, of warriors who fought for honor, and of common folk who toiled in the shadow of the ice. This is not just a recounting of lost civilizations. It is a narrative journey that weaves together the distant past with the fabric of our present and perhaps even our future. For the cycles of ice and fire, of warming and cooling, of rise and fall, are as much a part of our future as they are of our past. In the stories of those who came before us, we find lessons about our own resilience, about our capacity to adapt, endure, and above all survive in the face of overwhelming odds. So let us begin this exploration, not as distant observers, but as travelers in time. Let us walk through the frozen valleys of the past, stand in the shadow of great glaciers, and feel the ancient winds upon our faces. The past calls to us with a voice as old as the earth itself, asking us not just to remember, but to learn, to understand not only what was, but what might yet come. The earth was old, but humanity was still young. The ice ages were a time when the world itself seemed to hold its breath, and the civilizations of ancient times walked in the mists of prehistory. Their stories are our inheritance, and their struggles are the echoes that remind us of the resilience of the human spirit. This is their story, and ours. Chapter 1. The World Before the Ice Age. The Fertile Dawn of Civilization. In the time before the Ice Age, what we now see as barren deserts and plateaus were green, alive with rivers, lakes, and vast plains. One such vibrant area was the Persian Plateau, a land that was once teeming with life. Where now the arid winds sweep across dry, cracked earth, early humans thrived in a landscape dotted with fertile valleys, forests, and freshwater lakes. Among the many rivers that fed this rich land were the Helmand, Harut, Farah, Kash, Adraskan, and Arghandab rivers. These waterways had their origins in the far-off Himalayas and the surrounding highlands, cutting through rugged mountains and carrying their life-giving waters to the Persian Plateau. In the ancient city of Share-Sukte, these rivers were the veins that nourished the land, allowing early civilizations to thrive. The rivers followed a different path then, meandering through fertile valleys, carving deep channels, and feeding Hamun Lake, which at the time was a vast inland sea. The waters sustained agriculture, trade, and the very survival of the people living around its shores. In those days, the rivers brought not only water, but also life to the surrounding civilizations, making this region one of the most prosperous areas of the ancient world. In the 13th century, long after the Ice Age had passed, historical records tell us that Changiz Khan, the great Mongol conqueror, visited Hamun Lake. Accompanied by the Persian governor, Khan stood on the shores of Hamun, gazing at its beauty. He sailed its waters, which were much larger then, fed by these rivers flowing from the Himalayas. This was a land of abundance, a paradise in stark contrast to the arid deserts that would later define it. The Persian deserts, too, were once covered in lush greenery, sustaining early civilizations with their plentiful resources. Lakes and rivers wove through the region, bringing life to the fertile lands. Early humans flourished here, building settlements and learning the rhythms of the earth. They fished from these rivers, tilled the soft, loamy soil, and offered thanks to the gods they believed governed the natural world. The same people who worshipped at these lakes built homes in the now submerged valley of the Persian Gulf, then a fertile stretch of land where humanity had begun to farm and settle. This fertile valley was not just a passing environment, it was a cradle of early civilization. Persepolis, a city in a green valley. In the heart of what is now known as Fars province, the grand city of Persepolis was once surrounded by lush greenery, vibrant lakes, and meandering rivers. When construction began in the 6th century BCE under Darius I, the land was far different from the arid landscape we see today. The Persian kings chose the location not only for its strategic and symbolic significance, but also for its abundant natural beauty. The Green Valley provided a perfect backdrop for the splendor of Persepolis, where the mighty columns and grand palaces rose from a land teeming with life. The rivers that flowed through the valley, fed by distant mountain ranges, nourished the crops and sustained the population that supported the construction of one of the most magnificent cities in the ancient world. These waterways, coupled with fertile soil, made Fars a thriving agricultural hub at the time, allowing for the establishment of an imperial center that would be etched into history for millennia. Shari Sukte, the burnt city in the legend of Rostam. Amidst these lush lands and flowing rivers rose one of the most advanced and mysterious cities of its time, Shari Sukte, known as the Burnt City. Located near the banks of the Helmand River, close to what would become the Hamun Lake region, Shari Sukte flourished around 3200 BCE to 2100 BCE. This city was a marvel of early civilization, a hub of culture, art, and advanced craftsmanship. The residents of Shari Sukte were skilled in various trades, from metallurgy to fine ceramics, and archaeological findings show evidence of complex urban planning, including advanced drainage systems, and even evidence of surgical practices such as the earliest known brain surgeries. This remarkable civilization stood out in the region, thriving for over a millennium before a series of devastating fires led to its abandonment. Yet, the ruins of Shari Sukte, discovered in modern-day Sistan and Baluchistan, still tell the story of its grandeur. Among its legendary inhabitants was Rostam, the towering hero of Persia, whose epic adventures would be immortalized centuries later in Ferdowsi's Shahnameh. In the epic, Rostam is depicted as a man of enormous physical and moral strength, born into a noble family and raised in the vibrant streets of Shari Sukte. The city, surrounded by rivers and fertile lands, provided the perfect backdrop for the upbringing of such a hero. In Shari Sukte, Rostam grew strong, his body and mind shaped by the rugged landscape and the wisdom of the elders who passed down tales of ancient gods and great battles. His famed horse, Raksh, was said to have been born from the same fertile lands, symbolizing the strength and resilience of the people who lived there. The rivers that flowed from the distant Himalayas through Shari Sukte nourished not only the land, but also the spirit of Rostam, giving him the fortitude to later defend his people against enemies, including the feared Turanians. The stories of Rostam's deeds span generations. In the epic tales, he defeats fearsome adversaries such as the demon Divisepid, White Demon, and engages in tragic conflicts, such as his fatal battle with his own son Sohrab. Each of these tales reflects the deeply ingrained values of the Persian people: honor, loyalty, and the enduring strength of family and community. Rostam's legend was inseparable from the city that raised him. Shari Sukte, with its bustling streets, craftsmen's workshops, and flowing rivers, was not just a geographical setting, but a symbol of a lost golden age. The spirit of the city lived on through Rostam's deeds, shaping the collective memory of Persia's rich and powerful past. For the Persians, Rostam was more than a mere warrior. He was the embodiment of the nation's ideals, a symbol of its resilience in the face of adversity. His stature, both literal and metaphorical, loomed large over Persian history, with Shari Sukte as the birthplace of not just a hero but a culture defined by strength and wisdom. As the stories of his life spread through the generations, Shari Sukte itself became a part of the legend, known as the city that forged the mightiest hero of Persia. The legacy of Rostam and Shari Sukte Rostam's influence did not end with his death. His story, preserved in the verses of Ferdowsi, became a unifying force for the Persian people throughout history, especially during times of foreign invasion and national strife. The legend of Rostam gave the people hope, reminding them of their glorious past, of a time when heroes walked the earth and cities like Shari Sukte stood as pinnacles of human achievement. Rostam's connection to Shari Sukte also serves as a bridge between history and myth. While archaeological evidence reveals the grandeur of Shari Sukte, it is through Rostam that the city lives on in the hearts of the Persian people. It is a testament to how myth and history intertwine, giving life to the ancient ruins of a city that once stood proudly along the banks of the Helmand River. The forgotten lands of Hamun Lake. In the centuries that followed, Hamun Lake and its surrounding regions underwent transformations, shifting from a vast oasis to the dried-up remnant it is today. But long before, during and after the Ice Age, Hamun Lake was a great inland sea, one of many vast lakes that dotted the fertile Persian plateau. Its shimmering blue waters stretched endlessly, reflecting the vibrant greenery that thrived along its banks. Fishermen cast their nets into its depths, and merchants traveled its wide waters, trading goods with distant regions. Centuries later, even as the world around it began to dry and the forests retreated, Hamun still stood as a beacon of life in an increasingly arid landscape. It was so vast that even the mighty Changiz Khan, conqueror of empires, found himself mesmerized by its beauty. History tells us that during one of his campaigns, the Persian governor of the region invited Khan to sail upon the Great Lake. Picture the moment. Khan, the most feared man in the world, standing on the deck of a wooden vessel as it cut through the placid waters of Hamun. The wind brushed against his face, carrying the scent of wet earth and reeds. All around him, the hills and plains of Persia stretched, still green in this pocket of a land slowly succumbing to dryness. The Persian governor, proud of the region's natural beauty, steered the boat alongside his Mongol guest, who watched in silence as the lake's vastness unfolded before him. At that moment, even the unstoppable conqueror must have felt the immensity of the world, a world that seemed eternal yet fragile. But time, like the wind, would erode even this memory. Hamun's waters would shrink, its surrounding lands turn to desert, and the once flourishing lake would become just another casualty of a changing climate. Yet the stories of its grandeur, like that of Changiz Khan's voyage, would continue to echo through the centuries. The provocation of the Turanians. Ferdowsi's tale. Even centuries after the Ice Age, the cultural memory of those fertile lands and great conflicts endured. The epic poet Ferdowsi, in his monumental work Shahnameh, recounts the ancient battles between Iranians and the Turanians, the people to the north. Ferdowsi's poetry not only preserved the myths and legends of pre-Islamic Persia, but also incited a sense of pride and defiance among the Iranians against their northern rivals. In Shahnameh, the conflict between the Turanians and the Persians is deeply tied to the figure of Rostam, who is depicted as Persia's ultimate defender. His role in these battles solidified his status as the nation's protector, and through his deeds, Ferdowsi stoked the flames of this rivalry, provoking the Iranian people to remember their strength and unity. Rostam's might, wisdom, and sense of justice became the ultimate expression of what it meant to be Persian. His depiction in the Shahnameh as a warrior who could overcome any foe served as a reminder of Persia's resilience in times of hardship. Rostam's legacy echoed the earlier days of civilization when Persia's lands were green and its rivers plentiful. His battles, fought in the name of honor and justice, were a reflection of the land from which he sprang, a land that, even in decline, never lost its power or its memory of greatness. The first innovators. Early humans and their achievements. The early humans who inhabited the Persian Plateau, the Arabian Peninsula, and the shores of Hamun Lake were not merely survivors. They were innovators, learning to harness the resources around them to build thriving communities. They tamed the wild rivers, built shelters from the abundant natural materials, and began the early stages of agriculture. Here, in what is now arid desert, was a garden where wheat and barley fields stretched for miles, tended by careful hands who understood the intricate balance of water, soil, and life. These early humans also learned to domesticate animals, ensuring a steady supply of food, wool, and leather. The animals they raised, sheep, goats, and cattle, were as vital to their existence as the water and soil itself. The idea of community and shared survival defined these early societies. The families who lived on the plateau, by the rivers and lakes, understood that cooperation meant survival. Together they built homes, cultivated crops, and created the first forms of trade networks. These were civilizations in their infancy, and yet they laid the foundations for what would become some of the great cultures of the ancient world. Conclusion. The world before the Ice Age was one of abundance, life, and prosperity. Civilizations thrived on the Persian Plateau, around Hamun Lake, and across the fertile lands that would one day be claimed by deserts. These early people knew how to live with the earth, and their spirits still echo through the valleys, rivers, and forgotten shores of those times. Their story is one of resilience, creativity, and deep connection with the natural world, a story that, though often forgotten, shaped the world as we know it today. But among all these stories, it is the legend of Rostam that stands tallest. Born from the fertile lands of Share-Sukte, forged in the fires of battle, and immortalized in the verses of Ferdowsi, Rostam remains the quintessential hero of Persia, a figure as eternal as the rivers that once flowed through the heart of his homeland. Chapter 2. The Descent of the Great Freeze. The climatic shift, from warmth to cold. The warmth of the earth began to fade, and the sky grew heavy with the promise of snow. The great glaciers, silent and unstoppable, began their slow march across the land. The world that had been so fertile, so full of life, was changing, and humanity had to change with it. Imagine a village nestled in a valley that had once been lush and green. The people wake to find their world covered in frost, the river that had sustained them now frozen and still. The elders speak in hushed tones, remembering stories of a time before, when the earth was warm and the sun was bright. But now, they must find a way to survive in this new, harsher world. The people of the north, who had always lived close to the edge of the ice, now faced a struggle for survival. They learned to hunt the great beasts of the tundra, to build shelters from ice and snow, and to create clothing that would protect them from the bitter cold. Their lives were hard, but they were resilient, and they adapted to the changing world. Quotation. The ice came like a great beast, devouring the land. We could not stop it, but we learned to live with it, to find warmth in the cold, and to survive when all seemed lost. Attributed to a northern hunter as recorded in ancient sagas. Human response to catastrophe. The ice was not the only challenge. As the climate changed, so did the patterns of migration, the availability of food, and the stability of societies. Some civilizations thrived, finding ways to adapt to the new conditions, while others fell, their people scattered to the winds. In the equatorial regions, where the climate remained relatively stable, human populations grew. The Sahara, though drying, still offered refuge with its remaining lakes and rivers. Here, humans continued to innovate, developing new tools and techniques for hunting, gathering, and eventually farming. Imagine a small tribe, huddled around a fire in the heart of the Sahara. The chief, an old man with eyes that have seen much, speaks of a time when the land was green, when the rivers flowed freely, and when the tribe was strong. But now, the land is changing, and they must change with it. They must find new ways to live, to feed their children, and to honor the spirits that watch over them. Quotation. We are the children of the earth, and we must learn to walk in the new world it has given us. The old ways are fading, but we will find our path. A chief's words, passed down through generations. The silent advance, glaciers covering the earth. As the glaciers advanced, they reshaped the earth's surface, carving out valleys and fjords, flattening mountains, and creating the vast plains that would later become fertile farmlands. The ice sheets, some over a mile thick, locked away vast amounts of water, causing sea levels to drop and exposing new lands that had previously been underwater. These new landscapes, though harsh and unforgiving, offered opportunities for those willing to brave them. Human populations began to migrate in search of more hospitable climates, following the herds of animals that moved southward to escape the cold. These migrations led to the spread of human populations across the globe, from the frozen plains of Siberia to the tropical forests of Southeast Asia. The advancing glaciers were both a threat and an opportunity. While they covered vast areas of the northern hemisphere, making life difficult for those who remained, they also opened up new pathways for human migration. The Bering Land Bridge, exposed by the lower sea levels, connected Asia to North America, providing a route for the first humans to enter the New World. These early pioneers, driven by the search for food and shelter, crossed the frozen expanse into a land rich with opportunities. Quotation, "The ice has shaped our world, carving the land as it moved. We follow in its wake, seeking new lands, new lives, and new hopes." Ancient proverb from migrating tribes. Chapter 3. Life in the Frozen World. The struggle for survival, daily life in the Ice Age. Daily life during the Ice Age was a constant struggle for survival. The harsh climate, scarcity of resources, and ever-present dangers from both the environment and predators demanded resilience and adaptability. In the frozen expanses of Europe and Asia, small communities of humans banded together for warmth and protection, huddling in caves or building shelters from wood, bone, and animal hides. Imagine a family living in a cave high in the mountains. The fire in the center of the cave crackles, casting flickering shadows on the walls. The father, a hunter, sharpens his spear in preparation for the next day's hunt. His wife, seated beside him, stitches together a cloak from animal hides, her fingers numb from the cold. Their children, huddled close to the fire, listen to the stories of their ancestors, tales of gods and spirits, of heroes and monsters that have been passed down through the generations. These early humans were not only hunters, but also gatherers, foraging for edible plants, nuts, and berries when they were in season. In some regions, they developed techniques for preserving food, such as drying or smoking meat, which allowed them to store supplies for the long winters. The need for efficient food gathering and storage led to the development of communal living, where resources were shared and survival depended on cooperation. Quotation, "In the cold of winter, we find warmth in each other, in the stories we tell, and in the hope that tomorrow will bring the sun," attributed to a hunter of the Ice Age as told by his descendants. Cultural and technological innovations. The Ice Age was not just a time of hardship, it was also a period of remarkable innovation and creativity. The challenges of the environment spurred humans to develop new technologies and tools that would enhance their chances of survival. Among the most significant innovations were the development of clothing and shelter, both of which were crucial in the frigid conditions. Early humans crafted clothing from the hides and furs of the animals they hunted, using bone needles to sew together garments that would provide insulation against the cold. These clothes were not only functional, but also became a form of cultural expression, with different groups developing their own styles and adornments. Imagine a mother carefully wrapping her infant in a cloak made from the softest furs she could find. She knows that this garment will keep her child warm through the long winter nights, protecting him from the biting cold that seeps into the cave. As she works, she hums a lullaby, a song her mother sang to her, a song that connects her to the generations that came before and to the future she hopes to see. Shelter was another area of significant advancement. While some groups took refuge in natural caves, others built structures from available materials, such as mammoth bones, wood, and hides. These shelters were often semi-subterranean, dug into the earth to provide additional insulation. The remains of such dwellings, found in places like Ukraine and Siberia, show a remarkable level of skill and ingenuity. Art and culture also flourished during this time, as evidenced by the stunning cave paintings found in locations such as Lascaux in France and Altamira in Spain. These artworks, depicting animals, hunting scenes, and symbolic figures, are believed to have held spiritual or ritual significance, perhaps serving as a way to connect with the natural world or to ensure success in the hunt. The use of red ochre, charcoal, and other natural pigments demonstrates a sophisticated understanding of materials and a deep desire to communicate and express ideas. Quotation: "Through our art, we speak to the gods, to the spirits of the animals, and to the souls of our ancestors. In the darkness of the cave, we find light in the stories we paint." Attributed to a cave artist whose work still speaks to us today. The Great Migrations, journeys across ice and snow. As the Ice Age progressed, human populations were forced to migrate in search of more hospitable environments. These migrations were often long and perilous, with groups traversing vast stretches of frozen tundra, crossing icy rivers, and navigating treacherous mountain passes. Driven by the need for food, shelter, and safety, these migrations were critical to the survival of our species and the spread of human populations across the globe. One of the most significant migrations occurred when groups of humans crossed the Bering Land Bridge into North America. This journey marked the beginning of human settlement in the Americas, where these early pioneers adapted to new environments, from the Arctic tundra to the temperate forests and grasslands of the continent. The evidence of their presence, found in sites like Clovis, New Mexico, and Monteverde, Chile, reveals a rich and diverse culture that developed in response to the unique challenges of the New World. Imagine a small band of travelers making their way across the frozen landscape. The wind howls around them, carrying with it the scent of snow and ice. The leader, a woman with sharp eyes and a strong heart, guides them forward, always seeking the next safe place to camp. She knows the land well, knows where to find food and shelter, but she also knows the dangers that lie ahead. Yet she moves forward, driven by the hope of a better life for her people. In Europe and Asia, other groups migrated southward to escape the encroaching glaciers. These migrations brought them into contact with new environments and other human groups, leading to the exchange of ideas, technologies, and cultural practices. The movement of people during the Ice Age played a crucial role in the development of human diversity, as isolated populations evolved different physical traits and cultural traditions. The great migrations of the Ice Age were not only physical journeys, but also cultural and spiritual ones. As humans moved across the landscape, they carried with them their stories, beliefs, and knowledge. These migrations contributed to the rich tapestry of human culture, blending and adapting traditions to create new ways of life that would influence future generations. Quotation: "We are travelers on the earth, seeking the warmth of the sun, the shelter of the trees, and the promise of new life. The land may change, but our spirit remains strong." Ancient proverb from Migrating Tribes. Chapter 4: The Transformation of the Earth. The Melting Ice, Rebirth of Lands and Seas. As the Ice Age began to wane, the glaciers that had once covered vast areas of the Earth started to retreat. The melting of the ice brought profound changes to the planet's geography. As sea levels rose, rivers changed course, and new landscapes emerged from beneath the ice. This period of transformation marked the beginning of the Holocene epoch, a time of warming temperatures, rising seas, and the rebirth of ecosystems that had been suppressed by the cold. The retreat of the glaciers uncovered fertile lands that had been buried for millennia. In Europe, the melting ice created new river valleys, lakes, and wetlands, providing rich habitats for plants and animals. The thawing of the permafrost in Siberia and North America revealed vast expanses of grassland, where herds of animals roamed, followed by human hunters. The release of meltwater from the glaciers also contributed to the rise of sea levels, flooding coastal areas and submerging the ancient shorelines where early humans had once lived. Imagine a young man, standing on a hill, watching the waters rise in the valley below. The land that his people had once called home is slowly disappearing, swallowed by the sea. But he does not despair, for he knows that the earth is always changing, always renewing itself. He turns his gaze to the distant mountains, where the snow is beginning to melt, revealing the green of new growth. He knows that his people will find a new home, a new life in the lands that lie beyond. The rising seas reshaped the coastlines of the world, creating new bays, estuaries, and islands, The low-lying areas that had been exposed during the Ice Age, such as the Persian Gulf and the North Sea, were inundated by water, transforming fertile valleys into bodies of water. These changes forced human populations to adapt once again, moving inland or finding new ways to exploit the resources of the emerging coastal environments. In some regions, the melting ice also triggered volcanic activity and seismic events, as the weight of the glaciers was lifted from the Earth's crust. These natural disasters further altered the landscape, creating new mountains, valleys, and islands. The dramatic changes to the Earth's surface during this period of transformation set the stage for the development of new ecosystems and the emergence of complex societies. Quotation: "The Earth is a living thing, always changing, always growing. We must change with it, finding new paths, new homes, and new ways of life. Ancient wisdom, passed down through generations." The re-emergence of coastal civilizations. With the retreat of the glaciers and the rise of sea levels, new coastal regions emerged as prime locations for human settlement. The fertile soils, abundant water, and access to marine resources made these areas ideal for the development of agriculture, trade, and urbanization. As human populations expanded, they established new settlements along the coasts, giving rise to some of the first complex civilizations in history. In the Fertile Crescent, the Tigris and Euphrates rivers provided the water and nutrients needed to support the growth of cities like Uruk, Eridu, and Ur. These early urban centers became the hubs of trade, culture, and religion, with their inhabitants developing writing, architecture, and legal systems that would influence the civilizations that followed. The people of Mesopotamia, recognizing the importance of the rivers to their survival, developed sophisticated irrigation systems that allowed them to control the flow of water and increase agricultural productivity. Imagine a merchant standing on the banks of the Euphrates, watching as boats laden with goods from distant lands glide silently across the water. He feels a sense of pride in his city, knowing that it is a place of great wealth and power. But he also feels a sense of wonder, knowing that all of this, his city, his people, his life, depends on the river that flows before him. Without the water, there would be no crops, no trade, no civilization. The river is life, and life is the river. The Indus Valley Civilization, located in what is now Pakistan and northwest India, also thrived in a region shaped by the retreat of the glaciers. The Indus River, fed by meltwater from the Himalayas, supported the growth of cities like Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro, which were known for their advanced urban planning, including grid-like street layouts, complex drainage systems, and standardized weights and measures. The people of the Indus Valley developed a script that remains undeciphered, suggesting a level of sophistication and organization that has yet to be fully understood. In Egypt, the Nile River, whose annual flooding was a direct result of the melting glaciers in East Africa, provided the lifeblood for one of the most enduring civilizations in history. The Egyptians built monumental structures like the pyramids and temples, developed a system of writing known as hieroglyphs, and established a centralized government that managed the resources of the Nile Valley. The success of Egyptian civilization was closely tied to the rhythms of the river, which provided water, food, and transportation for the people who lived along its banks. Quotation: "The river gives us life, and in return we honor it with our labor, our prayers, and our love. Without the river there would be no city, no king, no people." Ancient Egyptian hymn to the Nile. The rise of new societies, Mesopotamia, Indus Valley, and beyond. As the earth continued to warm and stabilize, the conditions became ripe for the emergence of new societies. The civilizations that arose in Mesopotamia, the Indus Valley, and Egypt were among the first to develop the hallmarks of complex societies, including writing, social stratification, specialized labor, and monumental architecture. In Mesopotamia, the Sumerians established a series of city-states that became the centers of culture, religion, and governance. These cities, such as Uruk, Lagash, and Nippur, were characterized by their massive ziggurats, which served as both temples and administrative centers. The Sumerians also developed cuneiform, one of the earliest systems of writing, which they used to record laws, trade transactions, and religious texts. Their innovations in agriculture, metallurgy, and trade laid the foundation for the development of later civilizations in the region, including the Akkadians, Babylonians, and Assyrians. Imagine a scribe sitting in a quiet room surrounded by clay tablets. The air is filled with the scent of wet clay and ink, and the only sound is the soft scratching of his stylus as he inscribes the symbols of cuneiform onto the tablet before him. He knows that his work is important, that the words he writes will be read by kings, priests, and merchants. He is part of a tradition that values knowledge, memory, and the written word, a tradition that will endure for thousands of years. The Indus Valley civilization, contemporary with Sumer, developed along the banks of the Indus River. The cities of Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro were remarkable for their advanced urban planning, with well-organized streets, public baths, and granaries. The people of the Indus Valley were skilled in craft production, particularly in the making of pottery, beads, and textiles. They also engaged in extensive trade with neighboring regions, including Mesopotamia and the Persian Gulf. The decline of the Indus Valley civilization remains a mystery, with theories ranging from environmental changes to invasions or internal decline. In Egypt, the rise of the pharaohs marked the beginning of one of the most successful and enduring civilizations in history. The Egyptians built monumental architecture, such as the pyramids of Giza and the temples of Karnak and Luxor, which reflected their religious beliefs and their understanding of the cosmos. The Nile River, with its predictable flooding, provided the resources needed to support a large and stable population, allowing the Egyptians to develop a centralized government, a complex social hierarchy, and a rich cultural life that included advances in medicine, mathematics, and astronomy. Beyond these early civilizations, other societies were also beginning to take shape in regions such as the Yellow River Valley in China, the Aegean Sea in Greece, and the Andes in South America. These civilizations, each with their unique characteristics and contributions, were part of a broader pattern of human development that was made possible by the end of the Ice Age and the stabilization of the Earth's climate. Quotation: "We are the builders of cities, the makers of laws, the recorders of history. Through our work, we give form to the world, and through our words, we give it meaning." Sumerian proverb, inscribed on a tablet from Uruk. Chapter 5. The Legends of the Ice Age. Myths of Lost Lands, Atlantis, Lemuria, and the Biblical Flood. The myths of lost lands such as Atlantis and Lemuria have captured the human imagination for millennia. These stories, passed down through generations, speak of advanced civilizations that were destroyed by catastrophic events, leaving behind only memories and ruins. While some dismiss these tales as mere fantasy, others believe they may be rooted in real events, perhaps even linked to the dramatic changes that occurred at the end of the Ice Age. Plato's tale of Atlantis, a mighty civilization that was swallowed by the sea, is one of the most famous of these myths. According to Plato, Atlantis was a powerful empire that existed around 9,000 years before his time. The Atlanteans, having grown corrupt and decadent, were punished by the gods, who sent a great flood to destroy their island. Some scholars suggest that the story of Atlantis may be based on memories of ancient floods that occurred during the melting of the glaciers, when sea levels rose dramatically and submerged coastal regions around the world. Imagine a priest in ancient Greece, standing before his followers, recounting the story of Atlantis. His voice is steady, filled with the weight of ancient knowledge. He speaks of a land where the sun never set, where the people lived in great splendor, but where greed and pride led to their downfall. His audience listens in awe, knowing that the story is not just a warning, but a reflection of the fragility of human life. The story of Noah's Ark, a tale of a great flood that wiped out nearly all of humanity, is another enduring myth with parallels in cultures around the world. The Epic of Gilgamesh, an ancient Sumerian text, also tells of a great flood sent by the gods to punish humanity for its sins. These stories may be echoes of real events, such as the catastrophic floods that occurred as the Ice Age ended and the glaciers melted. The memory of these floods was preserved in the myths and religious texts of ancient peoples, serving as a reminder of the power of nature and the need for humility before the divine. Quotation: "The gods are just, but they are also merciless. In their wrath, they sent the flood to cleanse the earth, to wash away the sins of humanity. Let us remember their power, and let us live in fear and reverence." Attributed to an ancient priest, as recorded in sacred texts. The spread of ancient stories across cultures. As human populations migrated and interacted during and after the Ice Age, their myths and legends spread and evolved. The story of a great flood, for example, is found in many cultures around the world, from the Epic of Gilgamesh in Mesopotamia to the biblical story of Noah and the flood myths of Native American tribes. These stories, though varied in detail, share common themes of destruction, survival, and the renewal of life, reflecting the collective memory of the Ice Age's impact on human societies. The diffusion of these myths across cultures helped to shape the shared heritage of humanity. They provided a common framework for understanding the world and its mysteries, offering explanations for natural disasters, the rise and fall of civilizations, and the existence of lost lands. As these stories were passed down through generations, they were adapted to fit the cultural context of each society, blending elements of history, religion, and cosmology. Imagine a storyteller traveling from village to village, sharing tales of the Great Flood with all who will listen. His voice carries the weight of generations, his words weaving together the threads of myth and history. He speaks of the gods who sent the waters, of the hero who built an ark, and of the new world that emerged from the chaos. As he speaks, his audience is transported to another time, another place, where the lines between reality and legend blur. Quotation: "Our stories are our history, our memory, our soul. Through them, we remember who we are, where we came from, and where we are going." Ancient wisdom, shared by storytellers across the ages. Extraterrestrial influence in ancient civilizations. The concept of ancient astronauts, or the idea that extraterrestrial beings visited Earth in the distant past and influenced early human cultures, has been a topic of speculation and fascination for many years. Proponents of the ancient astronaut theory, such as Erich von Däniken, argue that some ancient structures, like the pyramids of Egypt or the Moai statues of Easter Island, could not have been built without advanced knowledge or assistance from extraterrestrial visitors. Imagine a young scholar poring over ancient texts and studying the ruins of lost civilizations. He is struck by the similarities between the myths of different cultures, by the recurring themes of gods descending from the sky, of strange beings imparting knowledge to humanity. He begins to wonder, could these stories be more than just myths? Could they be evidence of contact with beings from another world? These theories suggest that ancient peoples may have interpreted these visitors as gods, leading to the creation of myths and religious beliefs that have persisted throughout history. The narrative can explore how these ideas have been both supported and debunked by scholars, and how they reflect humanity's enduring curiosity about our origins and our place in the universe. Quotation: "The gods came from the stars, bringing with them the knowledge of the heavens and the earth. They taught us to build, to write, to think. But where did they go, and why did they leave us?" Attributed to a priest of ancient Egypt, as recorded in esoteric texts. Extraterrestrials in myths and legends. The possibility of extraterrestrial contact is also reflected in myths and legends from various cultures. For example, the ancient Indian texts known as the Vedas describe flying machines called vimanas, which some believe could be evidence of advanced technology brought to Earth by extraterrestrial beings. Similarly, the ancient Sumerian texts speak of the Anunnaki, gods who descended from the sky and played a role in shaping human civilization. These stories, whether interpreted as metaphorical or literal, highlight the ways in which ancient civilizations sought to explain the unknown and the extraordinary. The narrative can delve into these myths, examining their origins and the ongoing debate about their potential connections to extraterrestrial visitors. Quotation: "In the skies above, there are worlds beyond our own, filled with beings of great power and knowledge. They watch us, guide us, and sometimes they visit us, leaving behind traces of their presence in our myths and monuments." Ancient Vedic text, as interpreted by modern scholars. Chapter 6: The Civilizations of the Sahara and Arabian Peninsula. In the ancient world, what is now the vast, arid expanse of the Sahara and the Arabian Peninsula was once home to flourishing civilizations. The Sahara, long before it turned into a harsh desert, was fertile, with rivers and lakes where human communities thrived. Similarly, the Arabian Peninsula was a hub of trade and culture, where cities and kingdoms rose to prominence along the incense and spice routes that connected the east to the Mediterranean and beyond. Among these civilizations, the kingdoms of Sheba, Himyar, and Nabatea stand out, leaving behind a legacy of architectural marvels, rich cultural traditions, and compelling stories of legendary figures. The Eye of the Desert and the Lost City of Atlantis. Among the mysteries of the Sahara Desert lies the enigmatic Richat structure, often called the Eye of the Sahara. This massive, circular formation stretches 40 kilometers across and can be seen from space. While initially believed to be the result of an asteroid impact, scientists now think it was formed through geological uplift and erosion. However, some have speculated that this strange structure may hold the key to one of the most enduring mysteries of human history: Atlantis. According to Plato, Atlantis was a mighty island nation that sank into the ocean in a single day and night of catastrophe. Scholars have debated its true location for centuries, but some theorists propose that the Sahara Desert itself might once have been home to this legendary civilization. In their view, the Eye of the Desert might have been the heart of Atlantis, its circular rings matching Plato's description of a city surrounded by concentric rings of water and land. During the African humid period, when the Sahara was green and fertile, it is possible that a thriving civilization existed in what is now the desert. Rivers and lakes nourished the landscape, and the people who lived there could have built a grand city in the fertile plains. But as the climate changed and the Sahara began to dry, the civilization may have collapsed, and over millennia, their once great city was lost beneath the sands. While there is no definitive evidence linking the Richat structure to Atlantis, the idea that a powerful and advanced civilization once flourished in the Sahara remains an intriguing possibility. The Sahara's rock art and the ruins of ancient settlements suggest that this region was once a vibrant center of human activity, and the mystery of the Eye of the Desert continues to capture the imagination of those who seek to uncover the truth behind humanity's ancient past. Under the sands, lost civilizations awaiting discovery. Both the Sahara and the Arabian Peninsula, though now covered in vast seas of sand, are believed to be concealing the remnants of ancient civilizations beneath their dunes. For millennia, shifting sands have buried the evidence of once great cultures that thrived when these regions were lush and green. In the Arabian Peninsula, many undiscovered settlements may still lie under the deserts of Rub al-Khali, the empty quarter, and the northern expanses of Saudi Arabia. These places were once home to bustling trade routes, cities, and kingdoms that connected the Arabian world with the Mediterranean, Africa, and the Indian subcontinent. Archaeologists have already unearthed significant finds in places like Al-Ula and Madain Salih, but much of Arabia's past remains hidden, waiting to be discovered. Similarly, the Sahara, though largely unexplored, likely holds the remnants of ancient civilizations that flourished during the region's more fertile eras. The great expanses of dunes and deserts conceal settlements and perhaps even cities that once stood on the banks of rivers and lakes. The ancient rock art of Tassili Najar and Hagar show evidence of human life that dates back thousands of years, depicting a time when the Sahara was teeming with animals, water, and vegetation. Beneath the layers of sand that stretch across these vast deserts, countless secrets lie waiting to be uncovered. These undiscovered remnants may hold answers to questions about the rise and fall of civilizations, the movement of peoples, and how ancient societies adapted to changing climates. As technologies like satellite imaging and ground-penetrating radar become more advanced, archaeologists are continuing to make discoveries that reveal the hidden past of these ancient lands. The deserts, though silent, hold within them the echoes of forgotten worlds, waiting for the day they are once again brought into the light. The kingdom of Sheba and the queen who captivated kings. One of the most celebrated legends from the Arabian Peninsula centers around the kingdom of Sheba and its famous ruler, the Queen of Sheba. The kingdom, known for its wealth and strategic position in the incense trade, controlled the production of frankincense and myrrh, precious commodities that were as valuable as gold in the ancient world. According to both biblical and Quranic accounts, the Queen of Sheba, also known as Bilqis in Islamic tradition, embarked on a famous journey to meet King Solomon of Israel. Intrigued by stories of his wisdom, the queen is said to have arrived at his court with lavish gifts, including gold, precious stones, and exotic spices. Her purpose, it is told, was to test Solomon's renowned intelligence with a series of riddles and questions. The legend says that upon meeting, Solomon was struck by her beauty and intellect, and the two rulers engaged in a conversation about matters of governance, religion, and trade. It is said that the queen was so impressed by Solomon's wisdom that she embraced the monotheistic faith, returning to her kingdom not only with a new religious outlook, but also with a strengthened trade relationship between Sheba and Israel. The legacy of the Queen of Sheba continues to intrigue historians, theologians, and poets. Some tales even suggest that Solomon and the queen had a son, Menelik Thirst, who later became the founder of the Solomonic dynasty in Ethiopia, linking the Arabian Peninsula to the distant African kingdom. Himyar, the desert kingdom of power and faith. The kingdom of Himyar rose to power in southern Arabia after the fall of Sheba. Himyar controlled vast portions of the Arabian Peninsula and gained dominance over the lucrative spice trade routes that stretched across the region. But one of the most fascinating stories about Himyar lies in its dramatic religious transformation. For centuries, the Himyarite rulers followed the polytheistic traditions of Arabia, worshipping the moon god Almaka and other deities. However, around the 4th century CE, a remarkable event took place. The Himyarite kings converted to Judaism. Some accounts suggest this shift in faith occurred due to Jewish influence in the region, while others propose it was a political move to distance themselves from the influence of the rising Christian power in the Byzantine Empire. One of the most legendary figures from this time was King Du-Nuwas, a Himyarite ruler who fiercely defended his kingdom's independence and faith. According to chronicles, Du-Nuwas led a campaign against the Christian population in Najran, a city in modern-day Saudi Arabia, after they refused to convert to Judaism. His actions caught the attention of Christian powers such as the Byzantine Empire and the Kingdom of Aksum in Ethiopia, leading to a dramatic conflict that ultimately ended with Aksum's intervention and the fall of the Himyarite dynasty. Despite its fall, Himyar's unique history of religious transformation and its role as a dominant force in the Arabian Peninsula left a lasting mark on the region's cultural and political landscape. The lost city of Ubar, the Atlantis of the sands. Deep within the shifting sands of the Arabian desert lies the legendary city of Ubar, often referred to as the Atlantis of the sands. According to Arab folklore, Ubar was a prosperous and powerful city that ruled the Rub, Al-Khali, the empty quarter, the vast desert that covers much of southern Arabia. The city is said to have grown rich through the trade of frankincense and myrrh, commanding caravans that cross the desert to deliver these precious goods to distant lands. Ubar was reportedly ruled by a people known as the Ad tribe, whose wealth and arrogance became so great that they incurred the wrath of God. According to Islamic tradition, the people of Ubar were punished for their pride and disobedience. A violent sandstorm was sent to destroy the city, burying it beneath the dunes, never to be seen again. For centuries, the tale of Ubar was thought to be just a legend, until the 1990s, when archaeological expeditions led by NASA satellite imaging and explorers discovered the remains of an ancient settlement in the desert of Oman, believed to be the lost city of Ubar. This discovery reignited interest in the history of the Arabian Peninsula and the stories that had been passed down for millennia. Nabatea and Petra, the city carved in stone. Perhaps the most iconic civilization of the Arabian Peninsula is the Nabateans, famed for their breathtaking city of Petra. Carved directly into the rose-colored cliffs of southern Jordan, Petra became the heart of the Nabatean kingdom, thriving from the 4th century BCE to the 2nd century CE. Petra was strategically located at the crossroads of several major trade routes, allowing the Nabateans to control the flow of goods such as spices, silk, and precious metals between Arabia, Egypt, and the Mediterranean world. The Nabateans were master traders and engineers, famous for their ability to harness water in the desert. They built sophisticated water channels, dams, and cisterns to store rainwater, transforming Petra into a thriving oasis amid the arid landscape. One fascinating story about the Nabateans involves their defeat of the mighty Roman army. In 25 BCE, the Roman Empire, under the command of Aelius Gallus, attempted to conquer Nabatea, believing that their advanced infrastructure would be easy to overrun. However, the Nabateans used their intimate knowledge of the desert and water sources to defeat the Romans. By controlling the scarce water supplies and leading the Romans into desolate parts of the desert, the Nabateans successfully repelled the invasion. Petra's majestic structures, such as the treasury and the monastery, continue to stand as a testament to the ingenuity and wealth of the Nabateans. The city's grandeur, hidden in the mountains, was only rediscovered by Western explorers in the 19th century, and it has since been immortalized in both history and popular culture. Marib, the city of the Great Dam. The ancient city of Marib, located in modern-day Yemen, was the capital of the Kingdom of Sheba and is famed for its Great Dam, one of the most impressive engineering feats of the ancient world. Built around the 8th century BCE, the dam was used to capture the seasonal rains and provide a consistent water supply for the agricultural lands surrounding the city. This dam turned Marib into a fertile oasis in the harsh Arabian desert, allowing the kingdom to flourish for centuries. The Great Dam of Marib is often said to be the source of Sheba's legendary wealth. The ability to control water in such an arid environment gave the city a strategic advantage, enabling it to produce enough crops to sustain a large population and support extensive trade networks. However, the dam's eventual collapse, possibly due to neglect or a series of catastrophic floods, led to the decline of Marib and contributed to the fall of the Kingdom of Sheba. The city was largely abandoned by the 6th century CE, but the ruins of the dam and the ancient inscriptions found in Marib tell the story of a once great civilization that thrived in the Arabian Peninsula. Palmyra, the Desert Queen's city. Though not within the heart of the Arabian Peninsula, Palmyra was an important trade city on the edge of the Syrian desert, and its influence stretched deep into Arabia. Its most famous ruler was Queen Zenobia, who led a revolt against the Roman Empire in the 3rd century CE, declaring herself the Empress of the East. Zenobia's reign was marked by her military prowess and political ambition. She expanded Palmyra's influence across the region, including Arabia, and declared independence from Rome, creating a powerful empire that stretched from Egypt to Anatolia. Her defiance of Rome, however, was short-lived, as the Emperor Aurelian ultimately defeated her and captured Palmyra. Despite her eventual downfall, Zenobia became a symbol of resistance and strength, and her legacy as a warrior queen continues to inspire tales of rebellion in the desert. Conclusion. The civilizations of the Arabian Peninsula, much like those of the Sahara, were shaped by the landscapes they inhabited. Their ability to thrive in some of the most unforgiving climates of the ancient world stands as a testament to human ingenuity and resilience. From the wealth and wisdom of Sheba, to the powerful spiritual transformations of Himyar, to the artistic brilliance of Petra, these kingdoms left a lasting legacy on the history of the Arabian Peninsula and the world. Their stories, intertwined with legends of queens, lost cities, and engineering marvels, continue to captivate our imaginations, reminding us of a time when the desert sands were not a barrier, but a path to greatness. Chapter 7. The Forgotten Civilizations of the Americas and Asia. As the Ice Age came to an end and sea levels rose, many coastal regions around the world were submerged, burying the cities and settlements that had once thrived there. In the Americas and Asia, as in other parts of the world, the end of the Ice Age brought significant changes, leading to the loss of entire civilizations beneath the sands and seas. Imagine a city, its towers reaching towards the sky, its streets bustling with life. The people go about their daily tasks, unaware that their world is about to change forever. The sea, once a distant presence, begins to encroach upon their land, slowly but surely swallowing their homes, their temples, their lives. In the end, all that remains are memories carried on the wind and whispered by the waves. In Indonesia, the enigmatic site of Gunung Padang has captured the attention of archaeologists and researchers for decades. This pyramid-like structure, built on top of an extinct volcano in West Java, is believed to be one of the oldest human-made structures in the world. Some researchers argue that the deepest layers of Gunung Padang date back as far as 27,000 years, suggesting the existence of an advanced civilization long before the rise of the more well-known ancient cultures of Southeast Asia. Similarly, in the coastal regions of South America, evidence of early human habitation has been found in sites like Caral, the oldest known urban center in the Americas, dating back nearly 5,000 years. The people of Caral built pyramids, plazas, and irrigation systems, and engaged in long-distance trade with other cultures. The discovery of Caral and other ancient sites challenges the traditional timeline of human civilization in the Americas, suggesting that complex societies may have existed much earlier than previously thought. In North America, the ancient city of Cahokia, located near present-day St. Louis, Missouri, was one of the largest and most complex urban centers of its time. At its peak, around 1,000 years ago, Cahokia had a population of over 20,000 people and was characterized by its massive earthen mounds, which served as platforms for temples, residences, and burial sites. The people of Cahokia were skilled farmers, craftsmen, and traders, and their city was the center of a vast trade network that extended across much of the continent. The Great Pyramid of Gunung Padang and other mysteries. Gunung Padang, with its mysterious terraces and massive stone blocks, has sparked debates among archaeologists, geologists, and historians. Some researchers believe that the site may be the remains of a highly advanced civilization that predates the pyramids of Egypt and the megaliths of Stonehenge. The construction of Gunung Padang would have required a high level of technological knowledge and social organization, raising questions about the people who built it and the civilization to which they belonged. The controversy surrounding Gunung Padang reflects the broader challenges of studying ancient civilizations that have left few written records or artifacts. In many cases, the evidence of these civilizations is buried deep beneath the earth or hidden beneath layers of sediment and vegetation. The process of uncovering and interpreting this evidence requires not only advanced scientific techniques, but also a willingness to challenge established theories and explore new possibilities. Similar mysteries surround other ancient sites in Asia and the Americas, such as the Nazca Lines in Peru, the stone structures of Pumapunku in Bolivia, and the submerged ruins off the coast of Japan. These sites, with their enigmatic designs and unexplained origins, hint at the existence of civilizations capable of remarkable feats of engineering and artistry. They challenge our understanding of the timeline of human history and suggest that there is still much to learn about the early civilizations of the world. Ice Age civilizations of South America. While much of South America's most famous civilizations, like the Inca, arose after the Ice Age, there is evidence of early human settlements that thrived even in the final stages of the Great Freeze. These communities existed in diverse regions of the continent, from the Andean highlands to the lush Amazon basin, showing humanity's remarkable adaptability. One of the most significant sites is Monte Verde, located in southern Chile. Dated to around 14,500 years ago, Monte Verde provides a glimpse into human life at the tail end of the Ice Age. Unlike many nomadic groups of the time, the people of Monte Verde seem to have established a semi-permanent settlement along a river. They built simple structures from wood and animal hides, organized communal living spaces, and utilized both plant and animal resources to sustain their population. The discovery of medicinal plants and evidence of food storage hints at a society that had begun to master their environment, even as glaciers crept down from the north. Further north, on the coast of what is now Ecuador, the Las Vegas culture thrived between 10,000 and 4,600 BCE. The people of Las Vegas lived a coastal existence, relying on the bounty of the sea to survive the cooler, drier conditions of the Ice Age. They gathered shellfish, hunted game, and may have practiced early forms of plant cultivation as the Ice Age began to recede. These early coastal communities laid the foundation for the region's later agricultural innovations. In the Andean highlands, the cold, high-altitude environment may have posed even greater challenges to human survival. Yet, evidence suggests that early humans settled there, adapting to extreme conditions. These highland dwellers likely hunted large Ice Age megafauna like giant sloths and woolly mammoths, until their eventual extinction. This early Andean culture set the stage for the later rise of the Inca civilization, which would dominate the region for centuries. Even in the Amazon basin, where dense rainforest now thrives, the Ice Age likely saw a very different landscape, one dominated by savanna and fragmented forests. Early human inhabitants of the Amazon adapted to these conditions, using fire to manage the land and practicing slash-and-burn agriculture to sustain small dispersed populations. While little direct evidence remains from the Deep Ice Age, post-Ice Age discoveries of geoglyphs and earthworks suggest that even in this challenging environment, complex societies were beginning to form. These ancient civilizations, though lesser known than their successors, were pioneers of survival in some of the harshest conditions of the Ice Age. Their ingenuity and adaptability laid the foundations for the great cultures that would later emerge across South America. The transformation of the Amazon. During the Ice Age, as the Ice Age gripped the world, the Amazon basin underwent a dramatic transformation. Far from the dense, sprawling rainforest we know today, the Amazon during the Ice Age was a patchwork of ecosystems. Much of the region, affected by colder and drier conditions, turned into open savannas, and what remained of the rainforest existed only in small, isolated pockets known as refugia. These pockets were scattered across the basin, sheltering the flora and fauna that would eventually reclaim the land after the glaciers retreated. The once thick and endless jungle was fragmented, and the great Amazon River, while still a mighty force, flowed through a landscape far more arid than it is now. The animals and plants that had thrived in the humid rainforest had to adapt or perish. Some species retreated into the forest refuges, while others evolved to survive in the grassland and savanna that now dominated much of the landscape. For the early human inhabitants of the region, this transformation brought both challenges and opportunities. The drying climate opened up new migration routes through what were once impassable forests. Early humans may have traveled along the banks of the Amazon, adapting their ways of life to the changing environment. They became hunters and gatherers of the new savannas, learning to survive in this more open but less forgiving landscape. As the Ice Age ended and global temperatures rose, the rains returned to the Amazon basin. The fragmented forests began to expand once again, gradually reclaiming the land. Over time, the Amazon would become the dense, biodiverse rainforest we recognize today, but for millennia it was a place of stark contrast, an ancient Amazon unlike any we can imagine. Early Mesoamerican civilizations. During the Ice Age, long before the rise of great Mesoamerican civilizations like the Olmec, Maya, and Aztec, the lands that would one day be covered with grand temples and sprawling cities were home to the earliest human explorers of the Americas. These ancient people, whose ancestors crossed the Bering Land Bridge from Asia, began their long journey south during the harsh grip of the Ice Age, venturing into what is now Mexico and Central America. As they moved through ice-laden plains, following herds of mammoths and giant sloths, they were unaware that they would one day become the founders of one of the most advanced and complex regions of human civilization. The early Mesoamerican landscape was vastly different from what it would become. At the height of the Ice Age, the dense jungles and fertile valleys that we now associate with the region were mere shadows of their future selves. The climate was cooler and drier, and the tropical rainforests had not yet taken root. Instead, much of the land was covered in grasslands and sparse woodlands, making it ideal for hunting the megafauna that roamed the region. As the glaciers began their slow retreat around 10,000 BCE, the environment shifted dramatically. The ice, melting and giving way to warmer temperatures, transformed the landscape of Mesoamerica. Vast tracts of grasslands gave way to lush forests, and the rivers and lakes began to swell with life. It was during this time that the ancestors of the great civilizations began to settle, finding refuge in this fertile land, where they could begin to tame the earth. These early settlers were hunters and gatherers, but as the climate stabilized, they learned to cultivate the land. The domestication of maize, a humble grass that would become the foundation of Mesoamerican agriculture, was their greatest triumph. Slowly but surely, they abandoned their nomadic ways, building small communities around this sacred crop. Maize not only nourished their bodies, but became intertwined with their spiritual beliefs, a divine gift that would come to represent the life cycle itself. Imagine these early Mesoamericans standing on the cusp of a new world, a land in transformation, where nature was both a provider and a force to be revered. As the great mammoths disappeared into the annals of history, these people turned their eyes to the soil beneath their feet, understanding that the future of their descendants would be tied to the fertility of the earth. In time, these small, scattered communities grew into the bustling centers of Mesoamerican life. By the time the Ice Age had fully receded, the seeds had been planted for the emergence of civilizations like the Olmec, whose colossal stone heads would one day gaze out over a land filled with mystery and power. Chapter 8: The Dawn of Recorded History, the Birth of Writing and Record-Keeping. As human societies became more complex, the need for record-keeping and communication became increasingly important. The development of writing was one of the most significant achievements in human history, allowing for the preservation of knowledge, the administration of large populations, and the transmission of ideas across time and space. The earliest known writing systems, such as cuneiform in Mesopotamia and hieroglyphs in Egypt, emerged in the context of growing urbanization and state formation. These writing systems were initially used for practical purposes, such as recording trade transactions, legal agreements, and religious rituals. Over time, they evolved to include literature, history, and philosophy, providing a window into the thoughts and beliefs of ancient peoples. Imagine a scribe carefully inscribing symbols onto a clay tablet. His hand is steady, his mind focused on the task at hand. He knows that the words he writes will be read by kings and priests, that they will be used to govern the land, to record the deeds of great men, to preserve the wisdom of the ages. He is part of a tradition that values the written word, that understands the power of language to shape the world. Quotation: "The pen is mightier than the sword, for it can create and destroy with a single stroke. In our words, we find our power, our history, our soul." Ancient Mesopotamian proverb, carved into the walls of a scribe's workshop. Cuneiform, developed by the Sumerians around 3200 BCE, is considered one of the earliest forms of writing. The Sumerians used cuneiform to record a wide range of information, from agricultural records and tax receipts to epic poetry and legal codes. The Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the oldest known works of literature, was written in cuneiform on clay tablets and tells the story of a legendary king's quest for immortality. In Egypt, hieroglyphs were developed around the same time as cuneiform and were used to record religious texts, royal decrees, and historical events. The Egyptians believed that writing was a divine gift from the god Thoth, and that the written word had the power to bring concepts and ideas into existence. The inscriptions on the walls of temples, tombs, and monuments, such as the Rosetta Stone, provide valuable insights into the religious beliefs, political systems, and daily life of ancient Egypt. Quotation: "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was life. Through our words we create the world, we shape our destiny, we connect with the divine." Ancient Egyptian inscription dedicated to the god Thoth. The development of writing was not limited to Mesopotamia and Egypt. In the Indus Valley, the people developed a script that remains undeciphered to this day, adding to the mystery of this ancient civilization. In China, the earliest known writing system, known as Oracle Bone Script, was used during the Shang Dynasty, 1600 to 1046 BCE, for divination and recording historical events. The spread of writing systems across the ancient world marked the beginning of recorded history and set the stage for the development of complex societies. Quotation: "The words of the ancients are like the stars in the sky, guiding us through the darkness, illuminating the path to wisdom and understanding." Ancient Chinese proverb recorded on an oracle bone. The first empires, Mesopotamia, Egypt, and beyond. The development of writing and record-keeping was closely tied to the rise of the first empires, which emerged in regions where the geography was favorable to intensive agriculture, such as the Fertile Crescent, the Nile Valley, and the Indus Valley. These empires were characterized by their centralized governments, large populations, and advanced technologies, which allowed them to manage resources, maintain order, and expand their territories. In Mesopotamia, the Sumerians established a series of city-states, each with its own ruler and patron deity. These city-states, such as Uruk, and Lagash, were centers of trade, culture, and religion, and their rulers built monumental structures, such as ziggurats, to demonstrate their power and piety. The Sumerians also developed a complex legal system, with laws that were recorded on clay tablets and enforced by the king. The Code of Ur-Nammu, one of the oldest known legal codes, established penalties for crimes such as theft, assault, and murder, and provided protections for women and slaves. Imagine a king, standing atop a ziggurat, gazing out over his city. He feels the weight of his crown, the burden of his responsibility. He knows that he is the guardian of his people, the enforcer of laws, the protector of the land. His word is law, his judgment is final, but he also knows that he must rule with wisdom and fairness, for the gods are watching, and they will judge him in turn. The rise of the Akkadian Empire under Sargon of Akkad in the 24th century BCE marked the first time that Mesopotamia was united under a single ruler. Sargon conquered the Sumerian city-states and established an empire that extended from the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean Sea. The Akkadian Empire was known for its military prowess, administrative efficiency, and cultural achievements, including the development of a standardized system of weights and measures and the spread of the Akkadian language. Quotation: "The king is the shepherd of his people, guiding them through the storms of life, protecting them from harm, ensuring their prosperity. In his hands lies the fate of the kingdom." Inscription from the reign of Sargon of Akkad. The unification of Upper and Lower Egypt around 3100 BCE marked the beginning of the dynastic period and the rise of the pharaohs. The pharaohs were considered divine rulers, responsible for maintaining ma'at, or cosmic order, and ensuring the prosperity of the land. The construction of the pyramids, particularly the Great Pyramid of Giza, demonstrated the pharaohs' power and their ability to mobilize vast resources and labor. The Egyptians also developed a complex religious system, with a pantheon of gods, elaborate rituals, and beliefs in the afterlife that were recorded in texts such as the Pyramid texts and the Book of the Dead. Beyond Mesopotamia and Egypt, other empires also began to take shape during this period. In the Indus Valley, the cities of Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro were part of a sophisticated urban civilization that developed advanced techniques in agriculture, craft production, and trade. The people of the Indus Valley built well-planned cities with drainage systems, public baths, and granaries, and they engaged in long-distance trade with Mesopotamia, Persia, and Central Asia. Quotation: "We are the builders of empires, the makers of laws, the keepers of order. Through our work, we bring civilization to the world. We create a legacy that will endure for all time." Ancient Indus Valley inscription found on a seal. In China, the Shang dynasty, which emerged around 1600 BCE, established the first historically recorded Chinese dynasty. The Shang rulers built walled cities, developed bronze metallurgy, and created a writing system that was used for divination and recording historical events. The Shang also practiced ancestor worship, with rituals that included offerings of food, drink, and sacrifices to the spirits of the deceased. The rise of these early empires marked the beginning of a new era in human history, characterized by the growth of cities, the development of complex social hierarchies, and the expansion of trade and cultural exchange. These empires laid the foundation for the civilizations that would follow, and their achievements continue to influence the world today. Quotation: "The empire is like a great tree, with roots that reach deep into the earth and branches that stretch towards the heavens. It is strong, it is enduring, it is the source of life and order." Ancient Chinese proverb, inscribed on a bronze vessel. Technological and cultural advances. The technological and cultural advances made by these early civilizations were remarkable and set the stage for the development of even more complex societies. The innovations in agriculture, such as the development of the plow and the domestication of animals, allowed for increased food production and supported larger populations. The construction of irrigation systems, such as the canals of Mesopotamia and the shadufs of Egypt, enabled farmers to cultivate crops in arid regions and provided a stable food supply for growing cities. Quotation: "The land is the mother of the people, and the farmer is her servant. Through his labor, the earth yields her bounty, and the people are fed." ancient Egyptian saying carved into a temple wall. In addition to agricultural advances, these civilizations also made significant progress in metallurgy, with the development of bronze tools and weapons that were stronger and more durable than those made from stone. The use of bronze allowed for the creation of more sophisticated tools, weapons, and art, and contributed to the growth of trade networks that connected distant regions. Culturally, these early civilizations developed complex religious beliefs, artistic traditions, and social structures that reflected their understanding of the world and their place in it. The religious practices of the Sumerians, Egyptians, and other ancient peoples were closely tied to their environment, with gods and goddesses representing natural forces such as the sun, moon, rivers, and fertility. Temples, ziggurats, and pyramids were built as places of worship and as symbols of the ruler's divine authority. Art and literature also flourished during this period, with the creation of monumental sculptures, intricate jewelry, and richly decorated pottery. The epic poetry of Mesopotamia, the religious hymns of Egypt, and the oracle inscriptions of China provide valuable insights into the beliefs, values, and aspirations of these early civilizations. The development of writing allowed for the preservation and transmission of this knowledge across generations,